right, good morning. This is Emily Seal here to talk to you about your first big paper for Introduction to Theater, and that is a character analysis. This is not a book report. It's not a simple summary of the play. This is you doing the work of an actor. You're going to step into the actor's shoes and analyze a character. So this is a very famous portrayal. It is Troy from Fences, which is an August Wilson play. So the character analysis that you do will be also from an August Wilson play. It will be Joe Turner's Come and Gone, which was your supplementary text for this class, one that you had to buy separate from your textbook. You can see here we have two very different actors, James Earl Jones and Denzel Washington. And we're going to show two clips from the exact same scene so that you can see the difference between the way that Denzel plays the comedy of the scene and James Earl Jones plays the more serious.
A memorable scene by James Earl Jones as a stern father who has struggled to build a life and keep control of his family, shows him teaching his son a painful lesson about setting his expectations for affection.
Can I ask you a question?
What the hell you want to ask me? Mrs. Stawicki is the one you got the questions for.
How come you ain't never liked me?
Liked you. Who in the hell ever said, I got to like you? What law is there to say, I got to like you? Do you want to stand up in my face and ask me some damn fool-ass question like that? Talking about liking somebody. Come here, boy, when I talk to you. Straighten up, goddammit. Ask your question. What law is there to say, I got to like you?
None.
All right, then. Don't you eat every day? Answer me when I talk to you. Don't you eat every day?
Yeah.
Nigga, as long as you living in my house, you put a sir on the end of it when you talk to me.
Yes, sir.
You eat every day.
Yes, sir.
Got a roof over your head.
Yes, sir.
And clothes on your back.
Yes, sir.
Why do you think that is?
Because of you.
Hell, I know it's because of me. Why do you think that is?
Because you like me.
Like you. I go out of here every morning and bust my butt putting up with them crackers all day long because I like you. You is the biggest fool I ever saw. It is my job. It is my responsibility. You understand that? A man got to take care of his family. You live in my house. You sleep your behind on my bedclothes. You put my food in your belly because you are my son. You are my flesh and blood, not because I like you. It is my duty to take care of you. I owe a responsibility to you. Wait now. Let's get this straight right now. We'll go along any further. I ain't got to like you. Mr. Rand, don't give me my money come payday because he liked me. He give me because he owe me. Now, I didn't give you everything I had to give you. I gave you your life. Your mama and me worked it out between us. And liking your black ass was not a part of the bargain, and don't you try and go through life worried if somebody like you or not. You best make sure that they are doing right by you. You understand what I'm saying, boy?
Yes, sir.
Then you get the hell out of my face and go on down under A&P.
Can I ask you a question? The hell you got to ask me? Mr. Stawicki, the one you got the questions for. How come you ain't never liked me? Like you? Who the hell said I got to like you? What law is there to say I got to like you? Want to stand up in my face and ask a damn fool-ass question like that, talking about liking somebody. Come here when I'm talking to you. Straighten up, goddammit. I asked you a question. What law is there to say I got to like you?
None.
Well, all right then. Don't you eat every day? Answer Answer me when I talk to you. Don't you eat every day?
Yeah.
Nigga, as long as you in my house, you put a sir on the end of it when you talk to me.
Yes, sir.
You eat every day.
Yes, sir.
Got a roof over your head.
Yes, sir.
Got clothes on your back.
Yes, sir.
Why you think that is?
Because of you.
Hell, I know it's because of me, but why you think that is?
Because you like me.
Like, I go out of here every morning, bust my butt, putting up with them crackers every day, because I like you. You about the biggest fool I ever saw. It's my job. It's my responsibility. You understand that? A man supposed to take care of his family. You live in my house, sleep your behind on my bedclothes, fill your belly with my food because you my son. You my flesh and blood. Not because I like you. Because it's my duty to take care of you. I owe a responsibility to you. Let's get this straight right here before I get along any further. I ain't got to like you. Mr. Rand don't give me my money come payday because he like me. He give it to me because he owe me. I don't give you everything I got to give you. I give you your life. Me and your mama worked that out between us, and liking your black ass wasn't part of the bargain. Now don't you try and go through life worried about whether somebody like you or not. You best be making sure they doing right by you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Then get the hell out of my face and get on down there.
You can see those two scenes were very different. James Earl Jones came from a time when fathers were more domineering, when they were more dominant, when they were more aggressive, and that was actually portrayed in the 1980s, but you can see how James Earl Jones' father was probably more dominant than Denzel Washington's father. We know that these things change throughout time. But the reason I wanted to show you both of those clips is to show you that there are many right answers. The way that James Earl Jones played the scene is just as legitimate of a choice as the way that Denzel Washington played the scene. And both have a valid interpretation, and it has to do with what words you emphasize. You'll notice the way that James Earl Jones played certain words, harsh words, the GD, N-word, those words that a lot of us don't like to hear, whereas Denzel sort of glazed over those words. So what words do you think are important? How do you emphasize certain sentences or certain moments with pauses and the like? So hope you enjoyed that scene. So, what is a character analysis? Are you going to have to act out the scene? No, you do not have to act out the scene. Character analysis is a paper. It is paperwork done by the actor, and it is primarily there so that you can honor the intentions of the original author. I always like to think of it in terms of, what if my life were being played out on the screen? Who would I want to play me? Well, I think it would be Charlize Theron, personally. But how would I want myself to be portrayed? Well, these authors, when they create these characters, they have a perception. They have a desire to see them played a certain way. And if you don't read the text, you could misinterpret it. If I cast Dakota Fanning in Fences as Troy, that would be a misinterpretation of what the author intended, I think. I don't think that August Wilson wanted, a young little blonde girl to play Troy in Fences. And so the same is true of your character analysis. You need to really read the play, understand the personality of the person who the character that the author has written, and then do an analysis of it. Be ready to understand and choose who that person is. As I already said, character analysis is subjective. You could have a completely different interpretation as someone else who chose to write their paper over the exact same person. In fact, if you have the exact same interpretation, I'm probably going to think you cheated off each other. So make sure that you have your perspective, and you'll bring your own psychology into that, right? A lot of how you portray a father will be according to what your father is like, or what you think a good father should be, or what you think about people in the 50s, your perception of that, what other movie you have seen that may have given you a different portrayal of what a father should be. So all of these things are subjective, and that is okay, right? If we're doing science, if we're doing, hard and fast rules, that is different than the nature of art. Art is different from science in that it's up for interpretation. There are many right answers, and all people deserve to be heard. This is not, the only expert here is me, and I trust you. Trust me that I will be patient with you. So, you should make sure that your interpretation is based on your reading of the play. If you told me, once again, that you wanted to cast Troy Maxon as, a cross-dresser, I would question, did you read the play? Do you understand what August Wilson intended? Do you understand the world of the play? If you haven't really read the play a few times and gotten a good picture of what August Wilson intended, then you could probably cast him as a cross-dresser. But that would be less true to the main book, as we really want to stay true to Joe Turner's Come and Gone. That's what we need to do, and base it on the script. All right, so your paper needs to be a minimum of 2 pages, 2 complete pages, people. Don't give me a page in a sentence. 2 full pages or to 4 pages analyzing one character. So from Joe Turner's Come and Gone, you may pick Maddie, or you might pick the innkeeper. There are many right choices. Any of the characters are up for grab. Now, personally, I would kind of avoid the more obscure characters. I think that Bertha is a little bit hard to analyze because she doesn't have a lot of lines. I think that, but if, prove me wrong, have fun with it. So, again, the characters are Seth, Bertha, Bynum, Rutherford, Jeremy, Harold, Zonya, Maddie, Reuben, Molly, and Martha. So, pick one of those characters and then tell me about them all throughout your paper. Do not tell me about Seth's family life and then move on to Reuben's, who you think Reuben looks like. You just pick one character and stick with it. All right, so as you read the play, make sure you've picked one of these characters and you're ready to answer these questions in the form of paper. You're not going to type out the question and then answer the question. You're going to just write a paper and focus on the questions that I give you here today in this lecture. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, what does my character say about him or herself? What do they say about themselves? And then also, what do other characters say about your character, maybe while they're not in the room or to their face, right? Give me exact quotes of what people say about each other or what they say about themselves. So, for example, Harold Loomis is our primary dominant person in the story, Harold Loomis. And Seth Hawley says that Harold Loomis has mean-looking eyes. So if you were to give me that quote, mean-looking eyes, if you're doing a character analysis over Harold Loomis, I would want you to expound on that a little bit. What about his eyes look mean? How do you interpret that has come about? Is that a scowl that he keeps on his face? Is that an emptiness? Is he kind of like a zombie in his face where he doesn't have a lot of expression? What do mean-looking eyes mean to you? So not only give me the quote, but then expound on the quote and tell me your perception or interpretation of that quote. This is the big method actor question, and that's, what's my motivation? So in general, people are motivated by big life events. They want to get married. They want to get rich. And if we're doing sort of like a crime drama here, if we find a motive, then possibly we can pin it on that person if they have a motive. What's my motivation? Do I want a husband? Do I want to find my wife? Do I want to be successful financially? All of these are big life goals. And people's motivation changes from moment to moment. I mean, what you got up and put on this morning, you may not notice, it may be a subconscious decision, but did you put on your cutest pair of jeans so that you could walk past that person you have a crush on and show off how cute you look in your jeans? Or did you wear the only clean thing that was still in your closet, right? Are you wearing something cheap? Or are you wearing something expensive? Are you wearing something to fit in with a certain kind of group? So what is your motivation on even the small things in life are indicative of your your inner motives that then affect your final behavior. So this can be kind of a deep question, and for many of you it will just be, I'm looking for love or I'm looking for money. But then I want you to flush that out and tell me a little bit more about that person's motivations. So this is one question that I get the most complaints about. People don't know, does my character grow throughout the story? And most of your characters do not in this story. Somebody like Seth Hawley, we open the show, he is the grumpy boarding house guy, and then at the end of the show, he is still that grumpy boarding house guy. If we look at someone like Rutherford Selig, right, the exact same person at the beginning of the story that he was at the end of the story, but most plays have at least the main character who overcomes some sort of obstacle or fall in love with someone. There's some sort of change that happens to that person. If it's a coming of age story, right? At the beginning of the story, they're a boy. At the beginning of the story, they're a boy, and then at the end of the story, they're a man. So what evolution or realization does the character go through during the play? And if, once again, I don't know if I've said this yet, but if any of these questions don't apply to your character, if you can write your entire, 2 pages without answering some of these questions, that's okay. You can just skip over a question if it doesn't apply to your character. Don't take the time to tell me my character doesn't change. If they don't change, just skip the question and move on to the next one. So this is kind of the psychological aspect. Is your character part of a culture? And of course, Joe Turner's Come and Gone is from 1911, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But, what is their father like? What is their mother like? What do they do for a living? What are the working conditions? How successful are they in the realm of their society, right? Are they a peasant? Are they a slave? Are they a queen? And then how contented are they with that position or that status that they have? So ask yourself, how does my person fit into society, fit into a family, fit into a work environment, and are they successful? And that can tell you a lot about a person's psychology and their then behavior. How does your character relate to other characters? So if you haven't read the play yet, you won't know that Jeremy has a couple different girls on the line. He's got Molly and Maddie, both of whom he is interested in dating. So, but when Molly comes in for the first time, Jeremy starts flirting with her immediately. And so that can be sort of, a context clue that he's going to run away with her. He's going to leave Maddie and go with Molly. How does your character relate to the other characters? You'll notice that Seth is sort of talks down to Bynum. He does not think that Bynum is legitimate. He thinks that he's faking it with all of the root worker stuff and doesn't like him. Some of the habits that he has. How does everybody treat Harold when he comes in? Some of the characters are accepting of him. Some of them are challenging towards him. So go through different characters in the cast that you see the way that they interact with each other, and then tell me a little bit about, do you think... And we all do this, right? A child walks in, we get down at their level and we kind of talk to them. Hey, how are you doing? Right? Because we're talking to a child. So we adjust our communication style. It's called mirroring. We mirror that person and then give them the level of conversation that they can take, right? Whereas if your intellectual equal walks in, you're going to talk to them differently than you talk to a child, right? Someone who's in your field of study, maybe you start talking nursing with them and you have an intelligent conversation, you can meet them at a place that maybe you can't meet your parents. The way that you talk to your parents is different from the way that you would talk to a child or the way that you would talk to your colleague. So how does that character relate to other characters, and what does that say about their identity? Last question is just, what do you think your character looks like? That's one of the advantages of reading as opposed to watching a movie or watching a play, is that you can imagine who that person is. Is it someone that you're friends with in real life? Do they remind you of this person? Is it someone, a celebrity, that you could see playing this role? So I want you to print off a picture. That is not included in your 2 to 4 pages. That's in addition to print off a picture for me of what you think this person looks like based on your analysis. All right, so those are your questions for character analysis. I hope that that is a little more clear. And once again, you've got the worksheet that has all of these questions on it that you can refer back to. But hopefully that helped explain what kind of the area that I'm looking for, because I know these questions can be sort of vague. So now let's move on to the actual play, and let me give you a little bit of history about the play, give you kind of perspective on it. So this is August Wilson. He's one of my favorite playwrights of all time. I got to direct one of his plays, Fences, a couple of years ago when I taught high school in a inner city school, and I absolutely treasure that script. It means a lot to me. August Wilson is a poet primarily. He speaks in riddles. He will go off on an entire page about why Jeremy Lee liked to play the guitar. So when you find yourself asking, what does this mean? Kind of accept it with a grain of salt, because August Wilson is a poet, so he may be speaking in metaphors, he may be speaking in a way that you don't 100% understand, but kind of just rest in that mystery and accept the poetry of it, and don't try to dissect it or treat it like science. Accept it as art, and beautiful art at that. So the name of the play is Joe Turner's Come and Gone. And Joe Turney, it kind of got lost in translation there. Joe Turney is an actual person who lived, and he was brother of the Tennessee governor, Pete Turney. He was a plantation owner. And on the plantation, he had a lot of black people working for him, a lot of African American men. And the way that he would get people to work on his farm is he would drive down to Memphis and he would just pick men up off the street and charge them with something. For example, if they were playing dice on the side of the road, he would charge them with soliciting or hanging out without, he would just trump up charges against them and take them to what we might call a kangaroo court, an unfair court, an unjust place. And then he would take them straight on to his farm to work in a chain gang. Now, there's so many things wrong with this. First of all, Pete Turney, his brother, let him get away with this. As a public official, that's just despicable. But the other really wrong thing about it is that Joe Turner would pick them up off the street without any warning, and they would never go home, and no one would ever find out what happens to them. So these wives sing this lament because their husband has been picked up off the side of the street and left, never to come home again. So I say never to come home again. That's wrong. 7 years or 10 years, they would be released. Joe Turner will have gotten the good working years out of them. They get weak, they get tired, they get stubborn, and he sends them back on their way. And, what happens to their wives and their children without cell phones, there's no way to tell. And we like to think that this doesn't happen in our modern day and time, but my sister teaches English as a second language, and it's interesting to me to hear about her children's parents who may be illegal aliens and get picked up and sent straight back to being deported without even saying goodbye to their families. And just the emotional impact that has on the children is severe and profound, and I can't imagine many times in that case, like, albeit or not, the illegal aliens get back into the country. And so at least in our modern day and age, there's cell phones, there's email, there's clear understanding. In that time, it was a mystery. Where did this person go? And what happened to them is unknown. So that kind of gives us a hint as to why the main character, Harold Loomis, his wife, Martha Loomis, left their child with his mother-in-law and, went north because she had no idea. Was her husband dead? Was he picked up? Was he in jail somewhere? She had no clue. And so I just want you to hear a clip from the original folk song from this real historical event. The folk singer is W.C. Handy, and he just captures these folk songs and re-sings them. Obviously, this was a song sung by the women of Memphis. So when W.C. Handy says, "Got my man and gone," it's not nothing funny there. He's just repeating this song that the women of Memphis sang. So this is the song it's based on, Joe Turner's "Come and Gone," which is based on a real man, Joe Turney.
They tell me Joe Turner's come and gone, oh Lordy. Tell me Joe Turner's come and gone, oh Lordy. Got my man and gone. He come with 40 links of chain, oh Lordy. Come with 40 links of chain, oh Lordy, got my man and gone.
Hopefully that song helps you to understand August Wilson's motivation for writing this play. August Wilson's goal is to write the unwritten story, to tell the story that the history books leave out, something that's overlooked by historians, and particularly to tell the African American experience for other African Americans so they can be proud of their heritage and look at how far they've come. So this picture right here is by Romare Bearden, and it is called The Mill Hands Lunch Bucket. And this is another picture that inspired August Wilson to write the play that he wrote. This is in 1911, in the age of industrialism, and August Wilson very poetically talks about barges loaded with coal and the opening of the play. Men throw countless bridges across rivers, and it's interesting the way he talks about industry as sort of just naturally coming up out of the earth. The fires of the steel mill rage with the combined sense of industry and progress. But you have to know that industrialization of America was a big turning point for both blacks and whites alike. It was a huge change in our America. We went from being a primarily agricultural to working on farms to working in chain gangs like Joe Turner forced Harold Loomis to work on this chain gang. And then now we're moving into an industrialism where people are going into the mill, they're going into the factory, they're going to punch their time clocks. And one thing interesting that August Wilson points out is sort of the alienation of this effect. And I'm sorry that this picture is a little bit fuzzy here, but you can see there's a mill bucket in the bottom left-hand corner on that table. That's a lunch pail there, an old-timey lunch pail. And that man has oversized hands. These are collages, cut scraps from different magazines or pictures or fabrics. You can see some of the interesting African fabric at the bottom. And then there's a very prominent woman in orange standing next between the two chairs. You can see there, but someone who you might have overlooked is this guy sitting in the blue chair, looking down at the ground. And August Wilson was very curious about what that guy, because it looks like he just came in from the mill. He's got his helmet on with the light on it, and he is sitting and tired and alienated as these other two people get up to go do their shift at the mill. Remember, these mill shifts run 24 hours a day. And he was just thinking about the alienation that came with factory work, of feeling by yourself, of having to separate your family between one person working one shift and one person working another shift. And one of the most common complaints I get about Joe Turner's Come and Gone is, the character's so transitory. Jeremy comes in for one scene and then he's never to be heard of again, and Molly's there for the second scene and then she leaves. But I think August Wilson wrote it that way on purpose, to kind of tell the story of these transitory people, these people looking for work, these people doing whatever they can to get a shift in, and then when the shift dries up or when the job dries up, they have to move on and get back on the road. It's really a story about traveling and their journey from the South up to Pittsburgh. All of August Wilson's plays, except for one, take place in Pittsburgh, in this city where he grew up. And if you don't know anything about industrialism, what a lot happened after the agriculture kind of moved towards factory work or industrialism is a lot of the African Americans living in the South migrated to one of the big cities where there were already slums where landlords would let them live. Now remember, in 1911, there weren't any sort of restrictions on what a landlord could do. They could take in the people they want, and then the people that they didn't want to sell to, they didn't have to. So it was very hard for black people to find houses or apartment housing where they could be accepted and live for a reasonable price. Unfortunately, there was a lot of corruption in that a lot of black people paid more for their housing than white people who lived in nicer neighborhoods. So in Philly, there was a large population of African Americans who migrated straight from the South. Some other places where a lot of African Americans went is the south side of Chicago, Brooklyn, or the Bronx. There were just big migratory patterns of entire families or entire towns just relocating to a different city from the South up to the North. And almost all of these characters, except for Seth Hawley, are recent migrants. They had just come from the South, right? And we know that Joe Turney was actually Pete Turney's brother who was in Tennessee. So it's safe to assume that Harold Loomis came straight from Tennessee up to Pittsburgh in order to find his wife who has come here for work, right? Because that's where the industrial jobs are, that's where the factory jobs are, now that agriculture is sort of dying down a little bit. And remember also, it's worth stating that in 1911, the living conditions for an African American in the North are much less biased in many cases than it would be in the South. The South was still very much contemptuous, and there was a lot more injustice than there was in the North, which is why a lot of African Americans chose to go there. So that's our author, August Wilson. He died in 2005, very sad year for the theater community, but not without finishing all 10 plays. He wrote a play for every decade. This is ours from the 1911, right? And then we have a play for every decade, and he's trying to tell an entire century of African American history. This is not this idea of a cycle play, to write a play for every generation, is something that the ancient Greeks did. So he kind of is borrowing that concept. One of my favorite plays in this cycle, besides Fences, which I've already shown you a clip from, is King Hedley II, and that is from the 1980s. And Viola Davis plays a character who is having an abortion. There's drive-by shootings. They're talking about the slums. And then the 90s, he has a play called Radio Golf, which is about what happens when black people come to politics and when black people come to money and have wealth. Then how do the other people in the black community treat them when they have money and wealth? So sort of different issues that hit the African American people at different points in the last century of history. So we do have one for every 10 years in the last 100 years, which is a true treasure, and I'm very glad that he was able to finish that before he died. You can see that he is light-skinned. His father is German, but his father abandoned them when they were young, and he definitely was raised in Philly in the African American community. And he talks a lot about these men who would sit around in Philly and play cards or play dice, and he would just talk to them about what it was like back in the day. And that's kind of what inspired him to write down this history, is his love for those conversations that he had with older black men in his community. He did never graduate from high school, and he was going to a white school, and the teacher told him there's no way that you could have written this, and she accused him of plagiarism, and that was when he decided that it would be better for him to be educated by those men playing craps than to try to be educated in a culture that he's not accepted. He is a historian. He is trying to tell us history. He has a very clear agenda of presenting a side of history that is not often in textbooks. And it's worth saying that we have gotten a little bit better about this as a nation. You have to remember that August Wilson was coming up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s as we were trying to make this shift. As I think about museums that I've been to lately, I went to an art museum and there were quilts made by African American women, and I went to a mansion, and then there was an entire room dedicated to the staff, the African American workers. And I have no doubt that those are the newest kind of exhibits in those museums. And so I think that we can credit people like August Wilson for carrying the torch there, for encouraging us to look at the darker side of American history and accept it and bring it in as part of who we are as a nation. And we have to remember so that we never repeat ourselves. So as I said, those every 10 years there's a play. Every 10 years, this one is set in 1911, but they're all set in Pittsburgh except one, which is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Now I put down there not the Cosby Show, because this is definitely the underside of the African American community. This is the poverty-stricken, run down, painful aspect of Pittsburgh, and just feeling the heaviness of what's going on in Pittsburgh. And it's not, almost all of his plays have the weight and the pain of what was happening in the African American experience. And there are successful characters, like we said, Radio Golf, but most of it is the poverty-stricken, the underbelly. All right, so that is the end of my lecture here on August Wilson and character analysis. Once again, I apologize if the N-word really offends you. August Wilson said, "I'll stop saying it or writing it when the African American people stop saying it," because he is a realist. He wants to tell us about the way that the real world works and how it's really said. So he is a poet, and it is his poetic license to write the way that he wants. He writes kind of about the gritty underbelly, the blues music, the harsher kind of culture. So he's going to use some of those harsher words, and there's some sexual talk in this play also that is might be offensive to you. But please take it with a grain of salt and know that it's still a very beautiful and important story. If you don't understand every single moment of the play, just be patient and read it again, and hopefully you will come to love and enjoy August Wilson's work as much as I have. All right, if you will, go ahead and take a look at those questions and begin reading Joe Turner's Come and Gone by August Wilson.